Good morning. We got some beans to haul today. I got the truck started up. We'll let it build some air pressure while I go get my coffee. And I think we got to top that trailer off. There's some beans on it from the other day, but I don't think it's full. So we got some in the overhead. We'll top it off and start hauling. Phil hauled in the load on the Volvo from yesterday. I think we should have 4 loads to go to town here this morning. Dad's rolling out with the boss. Fuel trailer heading to Berkey. Going to chisel and tile. Well, we don't need a lot here. But we'll top this truck off. I should have pulled the head farther. Usually when we're loading out of the overhead, we don't fill the middle 2 bows. Just the front 2 and the back 2. But I couldn't remember where I needed to stop, so I stopped here and I climbed all the way up here and I'm going to fill it. It's not horrible. So we pull on the scale here, and then they take the weight, and now they're going to take a sample. So that big thing sticking up over the truck there, it's a probe. We're going to stick it down in, and then vacuum some of the grain out. Takes it into the building there where they can test it for moisture, FM, test weight, all that good stuff, while we go and dump. Now we wait our turn at the pit here. I'm guessing we're going to 3. They've got a cone up in 4. Gotta wait for that other truck to get unloaded. Theoretically, I don't even have to get out. They dump the trucks for us here. I'll probably let them do the front one, and then after we pull ahead, jump out and talk to them for the second one. After we're empty, we pull up onto the outbound scale. We get our empty weight and then wait for our ticket to print. $907 bushels. 14.7 moisture. FM was good. Docked us 12 cents on moisture for 14.7. We'll talk about moisture dock and what moisture to combine your beans later when we're in the combine today, and I can do some math. But now we go home, get another load, and do it again. Small, slight change of plans. I got back here and talked to Phil a little bit, and he was getting the drill loaded up. Brock pulled in, so he's planting, which is good, but we only had 1 more load left in the overhead, which Phil is loading up and taking in right now. So I don't need to take a second load. I do, however, need to go treat some wheat, and I have a delivery of some wheat coming, so I'm gonna go and work on that. Sun has come out. It is going to be a beautiful day for combine and soybeans, and we are going to cover some ground today. So we got to get this wheat treated so we can get to combining. We're going to do 1 more box. That'll be 3. I got 1 done, and that'll probably be the end of the wheat treating for me. So we will need just a little bit more than that. What I'll end up doing, okay, it won't be the last of the treating. It'll be the last of the real treating. What I'll end up doing is just running it through the treater with water to help flush everything out and clean the treater out a little bit as we wrap it up and do the last box for the fall. Perfect timing. Just finished the last box and my truck showed up. All right, well, we got that taken care of. I filled up a water jug this morning and left it in the house. I'm gonna go grab that and see my daughter, who was still sleeping when I left. I'm sure she's awake now. All right, it is 11:15. Probably a little early to start running beans yet. We did have a pretty good dew, and there's actually a few showers in the area this morning, but the sun is coming out. It's sort of partly cloudy at this point, but we've got sunshine right now. We're gonna get the combine ready to go, meaning we've got to move, so we're gonna drop the head, put it on the cart, and just make sure everything is good to go so that when it is dry enough, we can get started. Just going through and checking the cutter bar. Everything's got it's a little wet. I think we had just a little sprinkle come through overnight or this morning here. Looking for broken knives, guards, anything that would cause us problems. I don't see any. Sometimes they're hard to see or you just miss them because you're looking at the same thing over and over. But cutter bar looks good. I was debating, so I said I was going to drop the head because we got to move. However, the field we were moving to is about a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile that way. If I can make it from that driveway to the road right there by the corn, I can get there without dropping the head. It's a bit of a gamble, but I think we can do it. That mailbox and that street sign are the only real things in the way. But we're gonna attempt to do that. So we're not gonna drop the head right now. We're just making sure everything is in good shape and ready to go. Check the oil, lifted the head up, checking the cutter bar, that kind of stuff. It's quite chilly this morning. Brock got done planting the field across the road. We filled the air seeder up. Phil got new boxes of seed put on there and is taking them to the next field, the one we combined yesterday. And so I'm going to go pick him up, or we're going to get the cart moved a little bit and start getting stuff moved. I'm going to go grab some early lunch, and we'll go see if we can get started combining. I don't know. They might be a little wet this morning. We haven't had great sun. We've had intermittent sun, but I'm sure they picked up some moisture overnight. Of course, they were in the 13s yesterday, so I don't know. We're just going to go because we got to go, and the weather's coming later this week, and we got to get beans combined. Planting. All right, let's try this. We had a very brief, very light rain shower come through. Not enough to get everything wet, but it was enough to make me think, uh-oh. We seem to be okay, though, so we're going to see if we can't get out here and over to that road. Phil's brought me over. He's going to sit just past the curve, the intersection, just with the flashers on to kind of slow cars down a little bit. You guys can watch from up there the best you can see. Put the head all the way up, and we're gonna tip it. Oh no, I can't do that. Gotta get over this mailbox. Should be good now. Now it's just dirt road with nothing on the sides except for a mailbox up here that shouldn't really be a problem. Oh good, that car up there turned. I do have one behind me. I think it's Phil actually. We just got to get over this little ditch here. We're going to jump in right by those electric poles and we are good to go. Get my monitor and everything set up here, so it doesn't take too long. We do have to get the grain tank covers open. Get under this wire that we're about to drive under first. There we go. All right, well, we are opening up the end rows on this field. We've got a strong west breeze blowing the tailwind at me as we're heading east here. That's okay. The field that we're actually going to do is behind us, but I had to open this one up to get to it without dropping the head. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to combine here for a little bit. This is the next field we're going to do anyway. But this one is not going to wheat, so we're gonna maybe run a truckload off here. Away from this wire, or is this okay? Nah, don't park under that wire. You either get before it or past it, one or the other. And yeah, then we'll get over to the other field there and keep going. Brock's planting wheat in the field that we combined yesterday, so we gotta get that other one done so we can finish planting the wheat here real quick. Let's see, average 14.7 it says, 14.3 right now. Occasionally it's in the 15s, so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to do some math here after we get not doing end rows a little bit, but yeah, that's good. We'll run all as fast as we can go here, and see how much ground we can cover today with 14% beans. All right, well, I finally got that grain cart full. Decided to do a full grain cart load and a truckload from this field where we started, just to, because then we don't have a split load for field documentation purposes. Just makes it a little easier. We're gonna come here anyway. It didn't make any difference, right? So, but we are gonna jump over here to this field around this house. That's where we're gonna plant wheat. Why these are two separate fields? Well, because we started farming them at different times, and we own that one and not this one, and that's just why. They really could all be part of the same field, but it's how we farm them. So anyway, we're gonna jump in there. So far, let's see, 15.5 acres, 63 average over here. That's pretty dang good. 14.5 moisture, 14.6, we'll take that. Friggin' electric poles. Oh, that ticks me off a lot that they put those poles out in our field. That's such crap. I missed filming it, but I had a grain cart driver for 2 passes there, so he's gonna get a full truck and go unload it. We're working our way across here, 17 acres into this 35 acre field. We're averaging 66, 14% moisture. All is good. Now, let's talk about soybean moisture. I've been doing some math here, so I got some numbers that we're gonna talk about. I have made the comment a couple of times this week that I would much rather harvest 15% soybeans than 10% soybeans. And I've gotten a few comments about that, like, why? Aren't you getting docked? We get docked over 13% here. And you're right. You do, and we do as well. But do the math on it, and I'm going to walk through it with you, and we'll kind of explain why you're losing more money harvesting 10% beans. Okay? Now, there are some factors that I'm not including here. Number one, dry beans shatter more at the head and through the combine than wetter beans do. So when we get down to 10%, you're also going to have more header losses and combine losses because the beans just go flying everywhere because they're so much drier. The pods are drier. It's just how that kind of happens. There is a bit of a trucking factor with hauling wet beans in and hauling more water. It's going to get shrunk out of there. I consider that negligible, so I did not factor that into this equation either. So we're just going to talk about the actual beans, the dock that you take at the elevator for hauling into wet of beans, and the yield that you are giving up hauling in to dry of soybeans. Okay, so we need to establish some baseline numbers. Number one, we're going to start. Beans are sold at 13% moisture. That is the standard. That is a zero dock at the elevator, but the wettest they can be to get a zero dock. Okay, so that's the standard kind of baseline. Two, we're going to use $12 in our example because that's really close to the local cash price as of today. They're just a touch over that, but for easy round math, we're going to use $12. Okay. Also, we're going to do some stuff figuring 1,000 bushel loads. I know you can't quite get 1,000 bushels of soybeans on a semi legally normally, but it's a nice round number that helps you kind of understand this. So, if you haul a semi load of 1,000 bushels of 13% soybeans to the elevator and sell them for $12, you will get paid $12,000. Now, there is checkoffs and other things that they're going to reduce that slightly, but just go with me here. Okay, $12,000 for 1,000 bushels of soybeans at 13% hauled in to our local elevator today. That's what you get. Now, let's break that 1,000 bushels down a little bit, because in that 1,000 bushels that's 13% moisture, that means that there is some water in it, 13% water. So, when you figure that out, I'll show you the numbers here. You get 52.2 pounds of dry matter and 7.8 pounds of water per bushel. That's per 60 pounds, because a bushel is 60 pounds, okay? Those are the numbers. That dry matter number is important, 52.2 pounds. The 7.8 is also an important number because that's how much water you are entitled to sell with every 52.2 pounds of dry matter. In other words, 13%. So let's go to 15% beans. What happens when we take 15% beans to the elevator? Well, when we haul 15% soybeans to the elevator, they're going to shrink them back down and correct for that moisture to 13%, right? And so essentially you're hauling in some extra water that you're not entitled to sell in a bushel of soybeans. So let's do some math on 15% soybeans, and we'll figure out how much extra water is there and how many actual pounds of beans you would need to take in order to have 1,000 bushels of beans corrected to 13%. In other words, shrunk to 13%. All right, so here are the numbers. 15%. So in that 15% beans, there is 51 pounds of dry matter and 9 pounds of water. So we were at 7.8, now we're at 9 pounds of water. So you essentially have an extra 1.2 pounds of water per bushel, or per, 60 pounds in this case, that we have to shrink out of those beans. And so in order to do that, essentially you would have to deliver 61,412 pounds of 15% beans in order to equal 1,000 bushels, right? Now that's more wet bushels. Let me do some math on that. So that's 1,023 and a half wet bushels equals 1,000 bushels, dry bushels. So at 15% beans, you got to haul an extra 23 bushels. That's where the extra trucking thing comes into play. Regardless, you're still going to get paid for 1,000 bushels, and we're talking about 1,000 bushels at 13% here. So even in the 15% beans, we're still talking about 1,000 bushels of dry beans, not wet bushels. Okay, now because you hauled the elevator wet beans and they don't like it, not only are they going to shrink those extra 23 bushels out of there, they're going to charge you a drying fee because they have to run them through their dryer, which they're not. They're just putting them in the bin. But they're entitled to charge you to dry those beans, and by gosh, they're going to do it. And so at our local elevator, if you haul in beans between 14.6 and 15.0 moisture, 15%, they're going to charge you 12 cents per bushel to do so. So we're going to take our 1,000, because it's on the dry bushel, times that 12 cents, and that means on that truckload, you lose $120 in drying charges. Okay? So that's the loss of hauling in 15% beans versus 13% beans. At 13% beans, you sell them $12,000 worth of beans, or you get $12,000 for your 1,000 bushels. At 15% beans, you only get $11,880 for your 1,000 bushels. You lose $120. Now, that's not great. It is 1%, right? That is 1% that you are giving up for hauling in 15% beans. However, what we know is that beans dry rapidly. And if you get bright sunshine and windy days, they can start at 15 and be 10% by the end of the day. And you should, so what happens when they're down to 10%? Well, when they're down to 10%, now your bushel, we're going to go back to that dry matter figure, remember? 52.2 pounds of dry matter in a bushel at 13%. At 10%, there is still 52.2 pounds of dry matter. However, now you're only selling them 6 pounds of water instead of 7.8. So that bushel no longer weighs 60 pounds. It weighs 58.2. You lost 1.8 pounds of water that you were entitled to sell them with that 52.2 pounds of dry matter. And so you have to make up that 1.8 pounds with more beans. Because they're not going to correct it and say, oh, we'll add that moisture back in for you, like they would take it out for you on wet beans. They are going to just take that total pounds and divide it by 60 to get your bushels. Okay? So now you're only hauling them, if you had 1,000 bushels at 13% and that 1,000 bushels is now 10%, you only have 970 bushels left. You've essentially lost 30 bushels worth of water, 180 pounds, right? Nope, it's 1,800 pounds. Sometimes math is hard. That 1.8 pounds per bushel times 1,000, you've lost 180 pounds of water weight that you were entitled to sell with those beans, and you're not because they are too dry. So what does that mean? That means that your 970 bushels now times $12 is only worth $11,640. You no longer get to sell 1,000 bushels because you have to make up. Because you no longer have 1,000 bushels. You've lost the water that you needed to get there, and so that's where your loss is. So now your 1,000 bushels that are now 970 is worth 11,640, and you lost 3%. What is that? $360. Does that make sense? Did you follow those numbers? They're all here. I did the math. It's right. I'm sure it's right. But essentially, these are the ones that are important. At 13%, you make $12,000. At 15%, you make $11,880. At 10%, you get $11,640. That's why I want to combine 15% and not 10%. 13 is still the goal. That's still the best. And the closer we can be to 13, the less extreme those get, right? 14% is a lower dock, that 12 cents becomes less at 14% and less at 13.5. And so therefore the loss goes down. Likewise, you're not losing as much at 12% as you are at 10%. In fact, 12% and 15% are almost even, right? You're still better off at 15% beans than you are at 11% beans. So that's the target. Now you do what you have to do when you have to do it, and sometimes you get to choose the moisture, and sometimes they're 10% and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm not, we harvest 10% beans too. I don't like it, but when they're dry and you got to get them out of the field and you got good weather, you go and get them out of the field. So it is what it is. But I usually try and start early because I know these numbers. Here's the thing though, when you haul 15% beans to the elevator, they give you a ticket and it says right on there, minus 12 cents per bushel because they were too dang wet, and it shows you that loss. When you haul them 10% beans, they don't print on the ticket, oh, you should have hauled these at 13%, we would have paid you an extra $300. They don't tell you that, so you don't see it, and so it doesn't feel like a real loss. But it is. Anyway, we've got a patch here of some white mold. It shows on the yield map it was really bad a few passes over, but this corner right here, the yield's dropped off, and then they do that. They get all bunchy. Don't like that. Anyway, for the most part, these beans aren't too bad, but definitely more white mold in this field than pretty much anything we have done. Been a little patchy, just spots here and there, and for as good of a field as this is, the yield is showing it. Like, these are not bad beans, right? We're still running 67. But this is a pretty good farm. It's well tiled. Like these, given that what the other fields around here have been, I would expect these to be a little bit better, but they've had more disease in them. So, yeah. There's Brock with our air seeder. He's done with that field, ready to go here. So, you gonna come ride with me, or what's his plan? All right, well, he is over there planting end rows that way somewhere. Anyway, he has got all the wheat that we treated this morning in the planter now. Probably going to be about a box short yet. And so Brock has run a treater before. He's capable of doing it. I might let him do it. We're probably not going to actually put any treatment on. I just want to run the box through and flush it with water and kind of use it to clean stuff out a little bit, like I had said earlier. So, either I'll have to stop and go and do that later, or he can do it and I can walk him through it on the phone. Either way, I told him to plan out what he's got so we know exactly how many acres we got left, and we can do the math a little bit closer and make sure that we don't have any extra. We don't want extra treated wheat around because then we have to store it for next year. Anything that's still in the wagon that we don't run through the treater, we can just sell it as wheat, as grain. So that's why we want to get that as close as possible. All right, well, we got that field done, so Brock can keep planting. There's still some beans on the grain cart, and we like to get it empty, for record purposes, between the fields. So I'm gonna ride back with Phil and just grab another semi, park it here, and then we'll come back and keep combining. You guys know what happens when you're talking on the phone and you're combining beans and you get distracted and you forget to dump? I did not tap bean them, but I got to the other end of the field, and then it's like, your grain tank's full, and I'm like, oh, crap. So we had to drive all the way down here to our grain cart, which is fine. And now I see Brock standing here. He must be out of seed trying to figure out how much more he needs. So, yeah, probably going to jump in with me until Phil gets back here so that he can ride back to the farm and go get some more beans. Well, we're going to make the combine work a little, other than this where I already curved around the standpipe that is no longer standing. We got some green stems down here. There's kind of a muck pocket right here. They look like really good beans. They're usually not, because muck is usually not very good. And you can see, we had some white mold over here. This is not the best beans. But they're green stemmed. Not really high in moisture. Still right around 14%. Now they're good, but that's probably more to do with the partial pass than anything. Yeah, green stem beans certainly makes the combine work a little harder. All right, well, we got these rows done in this field. So this field's kind of odd shaped, like a lot of our fields, but this one in particular. So we got this part of it done. It also includes all of this over here. It's all connected. This is the part that we did earlier where Brock's planting wheat now. So we're gonna go start in over here. We got to do ends along this angled part. That's the ditch that runs through up in front of us there. And we've got muck pockets along the ditch. This is very hilly, up and down. We've got draws through there. There's this triangle piece that's basically what's straight in front of us there. That's a muck pocket. That's no fun. We got lots of ragweed. We got, yeah, it's all stuff. So you can see that this side of this field dropped off over here. Well, that's this area and this low ground and the muck pocket that was there. And so I knew this field wasn't going to be great. These are not our best beans. We're still sitting at a 60 bushel average, which is great. But I don't expect to maintain that based on what we have left to combine out here. Well, some of it's not so bad, so we'll see. The problem with fields like this, where you have to run rows in multiple directions and pull trucks out of multiple spots, is that eventually stuff isn't where you want it, and then you gotta walk over there and get it. Well, that makes it a little difficult to see, but we're doing okay. The beans have gotten nice and dry. The fodder's dried out. Everything's moving through the combine really, really well. Our losses are next to nothing. We're running 12% beans, 65 bushel, 4.7, 5 mile an hour. I mean, we're back to the combines performing really, really well, kind of like stuff was when we were down to Berkey and things were nice and dry and we weren't fighting wet conditions like we have been up here most of the time since it rained on Thursday there. So this is good. I like it. We get into these dips, it's just up and down. We get into the dips and the beans get a lot taller, a lot more material running through. We slow down, 3 mile an hour now, and we'll climb back up the hills. We got to do some end rows here along the woods and the lane on the far side of this field, but we've probably got an hour or so before it's dark. We're gonna down and unload you back there, don't you? We're gonna see how far we make it. I probably can make it back up, but if you're not full and you need more, you can. I know it doesn't look that dark, but it's getting there. I don't know how late we'll be able to run tonight. We do still have a pretty decent tailwind here when we're heading to the east, so hopefully that'll keep the dew from setting in and we can run for at least another hour or two. Would be great. Let's see, we're sitting at 53 acres done in this field of about 92, 93 to go, or not to go, total. I highly doubt we're going to finish it, but man, it'd be awesome if we could. It's dark, and we're still running. We're going to keep running as long as we can. It's going really well still right now. Beans are dry, fodder's dry, everything's still going. Doesn't seem to be a dew setting in, so that is good. We're up to 62 acres in the field, about 30 to go. We might make it. Brock just called me. He's done. Wheat for 24 is all planted, and that is a good thing. So I'm happy about that. In fact, the wheat we planted down to Berkey should be coming up pretty soon, I would think. I'm not down there to check it, but doesn't matter. It's cooled off significantly in the last week. Like, we're highs in the 50s for the foreseeable future, and A bunch of rain coming later in the week. So good to have that planted and done out of the way. Now we just got to keep moving on beans. And I've been sitting here trying to make a plan of attack for the week. Like what fields are the priorities? Where do we want to go? I've got a couple of fields of some really good beans that are still in the field that I'm thinking maybe we should get those out before they get rained on because they're really good beans. And then I'm thinking, well, we got these fields that can be a real pain when they're wet. Maybe we should do those fields before it rains and they get wet. And I can't cover them all. I can't get them all done. Can't do it fast enough. So we're going to do what we can as fast as we can, like I keep saying. And we'll see. So we should be well over half done by the time we get rained out Wednesday night or Thursday. I don't know how much more than that we'll have done, but we're gonna make an effort. So I know you can't see it very good because one, it's dark, and two, elevation doesn't show up on the camera very well. But there's a big hill kind of right here in front of us. We're climbing up it. 2 years ago when we had beans in this field, the last time we had beans here, we had that nightmarish 2021 fall harvest where it was wet and couldn't hardly get anything out of the fields. I remember trying to drive up this hill because there were some beans right over there along the corn, and we couldn't get there. The combine kept sliding down the side of the hill and was cutting ruts and was spinning and just could not get to those beans on the top of that hill because it was too steep and too muddy and too slippery. Thankfully, we don't have anything like that this fall so far, but that can change with one good rainstorm, and that may be coming the end of the week, which is why the push to get stuff done now. It is amazing how just a little change in the weather totally changes harvest conditions for us, right? Last week, as soon as the sun went down, the beans started getting tough. Our loss monitor went through the roof, and then we had to slow down to a crawl to thresh the beans and to keep them in the combine. Tonight, it's 9:30. It's been dark for an hour and a half anyway, and the beans are combining like it's the middle of the afternoon. We have no losses. We can still run 4 or 5 miles an hour. It's just a totally different conditions tonight, and I don't really know why exactly. We don't have that much of a breeze anymore. I can see dust floating in the air without blowing away, so I don't think it's cloudy. Could be a little bit of a cloud cover. Anyway, it's good. We're going to finish this field, I'm pretty sure. We're down to about 10 acres. We're up to 83 done. So that's really good. We are messing around. We have a hole here in the middle that we have to farm around, so we're messing around with these last few rows here, and then we've got to go and do this triangle, this point. That's what's left. So you can see the beans have fallen off over here. I told you that this was some of the better stuff up here and that it was going to get worse as we went. It has. We're still hanging out at a 59 bushel average though, and that is not bad. A little after 10 o'clock, they're starting to get tough. I can feel them running through the combine harder. Our losses are still really good, so we're going to keep going and finish this because we've only got 4 acres to go. Not even that, 3 acres. But definitely to the point where I can tell that it's running harder. So I was looking at something or thinking about something, and I remembered that I did not spray fungicide in this little triangular area that we're in now, and so I thought, well, I wonder what the map does look like. So I pulled it up here. So this is it side by side. All right, so this is our yield map. This is the application map from when I sprayed fungicide on these soybeans. So you can see there's this big area here that did not get sprayed, including this triangle where we are now. Well, look at the yield map. Green, green, greens. Okay, it fell off there. Green, 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 and then none. Yeah, the fungicide paid. Fungicide always pays. There's a reason that we should just spray everything and not leave those stupid check strips. But for whatever reason, I was in this field, and that's where we ran empty, and I decided not to get another load and fill it up. I know why. I know exactly why. It's because these muck pockets in this whole farm, just the way that it is incredibly difficult to spray. It's not fun to do. We don't like coming down into these soft soils and stuff with the big heavy sprayer, and so we don't. And they don't get sprayed with manganese like they should, and they don't get the weed control that they need, and they don't get the fungicide because we're not making any extra trips through here then we have to. And this is why a drone sprayer makes sense for us, because we have these areas that we don't even do them because they're such a pain to spray. And yeah, so it's costing us money not being able to do it or not being willing to do it, and so we need to figure out how to be able to get it done, and something that we're going to actually make it happen. And I think that means a drone, to be honest. Done. All right, what a deal. Well, they stayed up at 58. That triangle there was just a yield killer. They were terrible, which I expect. That's the kind of ground it is. It's terrible bean ground. It's really good corn ground. So that's why I knew our average wouldn't hold at 60 when we were just barely there on the other stuff. Fungicide would have helped. We might have gotten there if we had sprayed fungicide on the whole field, but oh well. Anyway, that's a good day. We did over 120 acres of beans today. I am thrilled with that. If we can have 2 more days like this, the next 2 days, we'll be sitting in pretty good shape. So, driving back over here to where our grain cart is and the semi-truck. The cart is just about full. We're not going to get it all on the truck to take it home, but it can sit there overnight. We'll deal with it in the morning. I know we've got more beans to haul in the morning. And then we're gonna keep combining. Thanks for watching today. It was a good day. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Make sure you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel for me. I would really appreciate that. If you guys haven't noticed, it's getting chilly out. Maybe you need a Borderview Farms hoodie to stay warm this winter. Head on over to farmfocus.com and pick up your Borderview Farms apparel, merchandise, and support the channel that way. I would very much appreciate that as well. So have a great night, everybody. We will see you again in the morning.